to point out how much I love playing Minecraft. I would spend hours either gathering cool blocks or building structures with said cool blocks. Therefore, hearing about the Trial Chambers update just made my little Minecraft addicted brain so happy. But as I'm exploring, a dark corner of my brain begins to ask questions. Questions that will no doubt haunt me until I get answers. Is there lore to this? And that's what we're going to find out today. But before we do that, please do subscribe. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later. Subscribing is the best way to support my channel, and a lot of people don't realise that they're not actually subscribed. So if you could just check to see if you are, I would appreciate it. Thank you, and back to the video. I want to take a step back and quickly summarise the lore that we already know about Minecraft. I'm basing this on what Mojang has officially stated, plus the hours I've spent watching the game theory episodes on the same topic. If you don't know, there was a civilization of builders called the Ancient Builders. They are responsible for most of the structures we see in the game. Each structure shows a point in the timeline where they are scavenging for resources and evolving all the way to the end, where, allegedly, they end up getting stuck. Why am I bringing this up? Well, it's quite clear, like how they are responsible for the structures, they are also responsible for the trial chambers. In fact, I think there's evidence to show that they were inspired from one of their old builds. If you've noticed, there's a lot of spider imagery in the trial chambers, specifically cave spiders. I'm willing to believe that the ancient builders drew inspiration from the mineshaft spawners and upgraded it. The spider imagery is to pay homage to the original idea. To understand why they built these, we need to think about the name first. The Trial Chambers. That key word being trial. If you were to practice something before doing it, that would be a trial run. And this is only further pushed by the mechanical way the chambers are set up. They have multiple traps inside the chambers, along with areas that will spawn mobs in a way that they can't escape down into the bunker and kill everyone. It looks like the Trial Chambers were made to train soldiers, using the mobs and the traps intentionally to check ability and agility. Well, okay then, that makes sense, but why is it made out of copper? Well, they needed something strong to limit the risk of being destroyed by mobs, so they resorted to copper. Now, some would argue, why didn't they just use iron? And while that would be a strong block, it fits the criteria, but it's missing one key factor: quantity. Think about it. The plan was to make a lot of rooms in these chambers, and if anything did get destroyed, they needed to be able to have the resource on hand to replace it. And while iron isn't too rare, there is still way more copper in our world. Plus, you get more from one ore, meaning getting stacks of this block was quite feasible, making it the perfect block to reinforce their base. It becomes quite clear that the ancient builders had built these chambers to practice fighting. They even set up elaborate traps to test their reflexes, and they built bunkers where they could rest easy without having to worry about monsters being nearby. But if this was meant to be training an army, then what were they planning to fight against? I think we have the answer for that. I think the ancient builders were planning to use their weapons against illagers and piglins. Ancient builders were the first civilization in Minecraft, but that doesn't mean they were the only one. Illagers were able to grow stronger than their villager counterparts and start replicating some of the things that the ancient builders had already made. They began using weapons and building makeshift structures to learn and grow as their own society. On the flip side, piglins also started copying the ancient builders, using their own weapons and armour, and even taking over structures that were made for the ancient builders to gather gold and travel out safely. These are two examples of mobs that saw what the ancient builders were doing and decided that they wanted to do that too. And the ancient builders, they were scared. They've been at the top of the food chain for so long, being able to ransack different dimensions of their resources. But now they could face the consequences of their actions through these new groups rising up and taking their place. You see, I don't think that the chambers were made to help them fight against enemies. I think they were made so that they could become the aggressors. The ancient builders wanted to become a force to be reckoned with, so they did what they do best. They created something. The trial chambers wasn't just a place to trial their own soldiers, no, but a place to try out new armour and weaponry. In doing so, they created something that looks like it could be the most powerful thing in the game, the mace. After being announced, many people have pointed out this insanely powerful weapon, and by design, the mace was made to outrank anything made before. It could also explain the vault imagery, considering that this was a secret weapon that they wanted to keep to themselves, hiding it away from any other evolving civilizations. They aren't protecting themselves from a fight, they want a fight. The ancient builders want to prove that they are still the ones on top, that no one could rival them. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at the ominous potion. Something that's guaranteed to give you the bad omens effect, which, if you take into a village, spawns a group of ravagers. Why? Once again, it's the ancient builders starting fights, provoking these groups in order to easily defeat them, having trained for these battles. And we haven't even mentioned the Breeze, a mob that I believe was created by the ancient builders. Quite literally them playing God in order to create new loot to harvest. Taking inspiration from the Blaze's design and the fact that they shoot fire projectiles, the ancient builders wanted to have something similar. So they created the Breeze that will drop wind charge, something that they can use to their advantage later on so that they aren't rivaled. The truth is, the ancient builders were monsters. Since they had an evolutionary advantage, they were able to gain power through being able to mine and craft items. They had become gods, and they didn't want to lose that when other civilizations in their world began learning too. Which is dark, considering that we know the ancient builders were looked fondly upon. They were heroes to the villagers, and hell, maybe the villagers still believe that. After the raid, you as a player are awarded with the status Hero of the Village, despite whether you caused that raid or not. The ancient builders were able to set the narrative that they were the heroes, but as we look back at the evidence, we start to think that that might not be true. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're onto something? Remember, everything I say is purely speculation and may be disproven later on. If you have your own theories, feel free to comment them. I try to read as many as possible. Thank you to my members, I couldn't do this without you. You guys are incredible with the amount of support that you give this channel. And if you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate it if you left a like and maybe even subscribe to see more. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!